So guys, if there's one story from tonight, it's that older voters, boomer voters, have united en masse against Bernie Sanders and his diverse working class movement of young voters. That's the story. They went overwhelmingly with Biden, even though young voters went overwhelmingly with Bernie Sanders. That's what most of the polling shows. We're at about 10 p.m. Eastern time right now, here Tuesday night, and Bernie Sanders has lost Michigan to Joe Biden, and by a pretty healthy margin. That's a devastating blow to Bernie. That's really a sort of state that Bernie Sanders needed to win if he had a hope of getting back into this nomination. There's no sugarcoating that. But if you look at the numbers, despite Biden winning Michigan and winning by a decent amount, Bernie Sanders was still polling in some cases above 80% when it came to voters under 30. And that shows me a couple key things. One, young people do need to vote more. In many cases, young people have not been voting relative to the amount of voting we've been seeing from boomers and other older voters. And it might not have been enough on its own for Bernie to win this nomination. If young people came out more, it would have been closer. Maybe Bernie doesn't win, but at any case, it would have demonstrated far greater strength among younger voters, and it would have gotten Bernie all the way to the convention and likely with a great shot of winning. But more important than that is the fact that boomers, older voters, saw a generation of young people excited, believing in what Bernie Sanders could do for this country and for this world, and basically said, screw those kids. Those kids wanted a Green New Deal. They wanted a $15 minimum wage. They wanted an easier path to unionization. They wanted healthcare for all. They wanted all sorts of positive, progressive policies that would make their lives better and the lives of other folks better. And the boomer generation said, we're going with the guy who's clearly facing cognitive decline and who told a worker that he was going to slap him in the face earlier today. That's the guy for the boomer generation, for the older voters. It's really, really sad because from my perspective, and I'm speaking as a young father, I have a son who's just under 2 years old. And when I look at things now, I'm already thinking, what's his world gonna be like? What's his future gonna be like? And when I approach politics, I'm already starting to approach politics with him in mind. I can't imagine how boomers who have children and in many cases grandchildren who are adults who are fully expressing themselves can look at what their children and grandchildren are saying and basically vote against their interests. Because any decent-minded generation has one goal above all: leave a better world than the one they were given. That's the goal. If you achieve that on aggregate, you've done a good job as a generation. And the generation that had $42 tuition, the generation that had decent healthcare on aggregate, because most jobs, at least more jobs, provided it through workplace benefits. The generation that had multiple long stock market booms has looked at this generation, the one that's struggling with inequality, precarity, a lack of benefits, expensive housing, mountains of education debt. They can't have families. They can't start their lives. And they've said, we're going with Joe. You kids don't deserve anything. You kids are wrong. You kids are entitled. You kids are impatient. We're going with Joe. And that to me is a slap in the face to all young people. The same slap in the face that Joe Biden threatened to give a worker today in Detroit. Isn't it funny how that works out? To me, what this is showing is sort of a microcosm of what Joe Biden has done approaching young people, which is that for much of this campaign and even over the past couple years, Joe Biden's made it clear that he doesn't give a damn about young people, that he doesn't care about the struggles young people have faced. He thinks that their generation is the same as his young people generation back in the 60s, and they changed things, so why can't young people today, ignoring the fact that the economy was much stronger, ignoring the fact that educations were cheaper and more valuable in terms of finding sustainable, high-paying employment, ignoring the fact that unionization rates, even for those who weren't as fortunate to go to college or university, were much higher, allowing people to earn a better wage given the same amount of work, often less work. All of these things are missing on aggregate from young people in 2020 and over the past few years. And Biden either doesn't get it or he chooses to ignore it, maybe a little bit of both. And yet, older voters en masse went with him. I understand that young people should vote more. I understand that boomers and older folks have the right to vote for their interests and what they want to vote for, who they feel is the best candidate, who they feel will do best by them. But at the end of the day, guys, I really have to say that if you feel that Biden is best for you, but you're still looking at what your children and grandchildren are thinking and outright ignoring it, then you're not doing your job as a generation to build a better world. You're not. You're just not doing it. And I get it. I'm going to be clear here. Not all boomers. Hashtag not all boomers. A lot of older folks supported Bernie. And I know a lot of older folks aren't wealthy. A lot of older folks never got to benefit from the boom that maybe boomers on aggregate got to benefit from. But it is fair and accurate to say that on average, everything else being equal, that generation had more opportunities than people of a similar socioeconomic background of this generation. And that's the truth. So guys, this night has left me very, very, very disheartened. Extremely disheartened. At this stage, I don't know what Bernie's path forward is. Bernie has yet to resign. Bernie has yet to drop out. Until Bernie does, even if he goes all the way to the convention, I will be there to back him 100%. But it's becoming increasingly clear that the boomer megazord has basically willed Joe Biden, even though Joe Biden, again, is clearly not all there, to the nomination. It looks like it's a matter of time at this particular stage. And I just really worry, guys, because Joe Biden, who has made no effort to reach out to young people, is now going to expect their vote in the general election. And unless he can do something drastic to earn it, we're looking at 4 more years of Donald Trump. And nobody wants that, right? So that's why I'm pretty sad right now. We're going to keep pushing on this story. We're going to keep fighting because young people have a dream of a more just and dignified and equal social order. Even if we don't win it this time, we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop pushing. And frankly, we're going to have to keep pushing harder because our older generations, our parents and our grandparents, they're a barrier in our way.